Hello and welcome to ET Market Smart Talk. Well, I'm your host, Kshitij Anand, and India's office market has just crossed a major milestone 1 billion square feet of total stock, signaling actually a new era for the country's commercial real estate sector. From the dominance of grade A offices to the rise of southern markets like Bengaluru and Hyderabad, there's plenty to unpack about what's driving this growth and how it ties into the broader economic landscape. Well, to help us understand the trends shaping India's real estate story, we're joining by Mr. Gulam Zia, who's a senior executive director at Knight Frank India. Gulam, thank you for joining us and welcome to ET Market Smart Talk.
It's my pleasure, Kshitij. It's a platform which is highly valued, and for me to be a part of this is a great honor. Thank you so much for inviting me, and I'm sure it's going to be a great discussion for your viewers to realize the importance of office market that it plays in the overall economic growth of the country. Looking forward to interact with you, Kshitij.
Absolutely, same here, Gulam. And let's quickly start off with the discussion. In fact, the Indian office market crossed a historic milestone of 1 billion square feet in total stock this quarter. So, what does this signify for India's commercial real estate landscape?
Well, Kshitij, just a little backdrop. If I go down the memory lane, when I started my career in Knight Frank some 25, 26 years back,
Sure.
we were looking at overall office stock, and at that time, A grade was not even 50% of the overall stock because it was of mostly old stock in most of the top three, four odd cities. That time, it was barely some 200 million. So I have seen this journey from 200 odd millions, of which only 100 odd million was A grade stock, to where we are today, where almost 80% is A grade stock today. So this is the way the commercial real estate has evolved in India, starting with some 30, 35 years back when Ascendas walked in for the first time and did their first IT park in Bengaluru with Tata Group as the local partner. From there to here, it's been a long journey, lots of ups and downs. There have been instances where, especially after global financial crisis, where 2007 or 8, when we were looking at about 35, 40 odd million prior to GFC per year kind of a space uptake. And immediately after immediately after GFC, it crashed to barely some 14, 15 million. So in spite of all those, bad patches, and let's not forget even COVID, the recent example of the pandemic, in spite of all these, we have reached this milestone, 1 billion square feet of office space in India. Historic milestone, and especially if you look at the global perspective as well, we are only the fourth country in the world to reach that mark. And the way we are poised, the way the Indian economy is growing, I'm sure soon we will be the way we have been growing from the GDP perspective from fourth to sixth to fifth to fourth. Similarly, on this aspect as well, we shall take quantum strides in times to come.
Absolutely, and we also hope the same. And you've talked so much about you've talked about the grade A offices, and which accounts for around about 90% of the leasing volumes. What's behind this strong preference for premium workspace? In fact, you did highlight we're the fourth country to, in fact, reach this kind of milestone.
Well, the office space preferences have been changing. Of late, with the global the norms that we're looking at, global capability centers have become a norm. The GCCs are more of extremely high-end research activities that a lot of these MNCs are embarking upon. So what India used to be about, say, 2.5 decades back, which was mostly the back office of the world, where we were outsourcing low-end outsourcing of office works, etc., was coming to India, has drastically changed. The manpower, the resources that India has today are the best in the world. Why?
Hmm.
Most of the IT companies are today led by Indians, as we know. The big shots are led by Indians. So the kind of resources that we have created in last decade or two have really brought our profile on a different plane altogether. So here today the story is more than outsourcing. We are now talking about insourcing. So there are organizations which are embarking upon, high-end research
Yeah.
and doing it themselves. So all these organizations are opening up their large offices where they're hiring these best of the tech talents, and these talents are then elevating the positioning of these MNCs to the next level. So that's where the difference is. The people who are occupied in who are employed in these GCCs are the best of the lot. And hence the change. If you compare it with what we used to see earlier in the BPO era, the business processing outsourcing era, where it was more of call centers, etc., small offices of 25, 30 square feet each, desks, etc. From there to today, where we are talking GCCs, they require huge spaces because the kind of people you're recruiting are
Yeah.
also high-end resources. To retain them, not only are you giving them good salaries, but you're also giving them better lifestyles, better offices,
Hmm.
with packed with all facilities of the new age. So that's
Yeah.
where the whole change, the new A grade that we're talking about, is the best in the world, comparable to the best in the world, from where we were about 2.5, 3 decades back to where we are, especially with the onset of GCC. Evolved office spaces are the A grade office spaces are the best in the world today.
Absolutely. And in fact, in your conversation, you did highlight about Bengaluru, and which continues to dominate the leasing activity, while Hyderabad and Chennai have also sort of seen a sharp growth driven by the global compatibility centers, or global capability centers, or GCCs. So what makes these southern markets stand out?
Resources. So let's
Resource.
look at it this way.
Hmm.
Any tech company coming to India, the first choice is obviously Bangalore. Because the kind of people, first of all, over the ages, the academics, the education, Bangalore has been one of the best in the country. So when they
Sure.
started coming over here, the tech related knowledge, the resources with that kind of a competency were also on top. And
Hmm.
then once they have established, when once Bangalore has established itself as the city of choice, lots of resources from all over the world have started converging into Bangalore. So
True.
today it has that distinct advantage. Like if I would say at least 25% to one third of office space absorption in the country happens in Bangalore. That's the
Okay.
importance of Bangalore. And of course, once we're talking about choice, if Bangalore is perhaps out of budgets or if they have to expand, the next choice is either Hyderabad or Chennai.
Yeah.
So southern
True.
markets have actually taken a leading position overall, with Bangalore leading the pack, and Chennai and Hyderabad the next in choice. But then, of course, close on the heels, there's also Pune. So it's actually after Bangalore, you would either look at Hyderabad, Chennai, or Pune. So the choice is pretty clear. Mumbai and NCR come way later in the packing order. The top choice, no guesses, it's Bangalore.
Absolutely. Let's also transition from the corporate space to the residential space. Premium housing is leading the market, while demand in the, you could say, the sub 1 CR segment is sort of softening. So, what's driving this shift towards higher value homes?
Well, there have been two, three hypotheses. Why do I call them hypotheses? Is because it's not proven
Hmm.
yet.
Okay.
Immediately after COVID, there
Hmm.
was this entire brouhaha about people requiring big houses because you have to work from home, because you have
Right.
to
Right.
study from home, and so on and so forth. So that was
Yes.
a time when this was, this whole concept of a one bedroom extra or one room extra was drilled
Hmm.
into the psyche of buyers, and that's what started the move towards larger homes, luxury homes, etc. and and that's what was a complete turning point, and from there we haven't really turned around, we haven't looked back. So last
Okay.
3.5 to 4 years, pretty much every city, every developer is talking about luxury, talking about creating houses which are for the upper end of the market. And that was from supply side. Now, quickly, a quick chat about the demand side. Well, first of all, the stock market has really performed exemplary performance. We have seen huge amount of wealth creation, and then let's not forget the tech. India has been talked about as the startup capital of the world. Lot of these firms, the new age firms, have come up and taking all the attention from investors, etc. And that's when, whether it is Bangalore, Hyderabad, Mumbai because of its financial prowess, NCR happens to be the capital, the seat of power, and the tech capitals like Bangalore, etc. Everywhere we have seen huge amount of wealth creation, be it startups or stock exchanges. Many of these startups have actually gone public. Why just startups? Lot of other companies, not just tech, manufacturing, services, a huge list. So if you look at, I think in 2024, we had almost some 360 odd listings in stock exchange, which means one per day. So what's happening is a lot of these organizations, companies are going public, and the founders, the key investors, etc., are making big money, and that wealth is fueled into or channelized into real estate. So there it is. You would have a startup, you would go public, you will have maybe a 10-15,000 crore at your disposal, of which spending 100 or 200 crore is not, nobody would bat an eyelid for that kind of a betting on real estate. And that's what sparked the new wave of luxury, and there is no end to it. 100 crore apartment even in Delhi was unheard of, but are now selling like hotcakes. So when you look at the price segments, and we've been analyzing residential market on various of these price segments. So when we are talking about 20 crore plus kind of houses, about 2.5 to 3,000 houses are sold in last 1 year alone. So that's, you can imagine, there are so many of these people who have made good wealth on whatever channel, be it stock exchange or tech or whatever else, or listings, etc. Huge money made, and that's coming into real estate. So last almost 3.5-4 years, developers have also realized that the demand has actually been touching the sky, and they've been only creating high-end housing, the super luxury or luxury housing, and selling. And that's where, there have been a lot of these organizations which were created to cater to affordable housing, but they realize that the low-hanging fruits are elsewhere. So they've actually shut their shop on affordable housing, and have been completely focusing on luxury housing. And at least so far, we don't see any slowdown. Last couple of months, there have been a little narrative that there's a slowdown in the market. But just to throw a few numbers, statistics at you, or your viewers, sorry, the last September month, Mumbai has seen the best September in 10 years, with some 12.5 odd thousand apartments sold. And that was a month in which we had the Shraddh period also coming, and Navratra. It doesn't normally happen. In the same month, we had both Shraddh and Navratra coming. And the Shraddh this year was 5-6% better than the Shraddh last year. And the Navratra itself, the numbers have been 22 odd percent higher than the previous one. So that has once again established that the discussions of slowdowns are perhaps a little too soon. So I would still feel that we need to wait and see which way the things are opening up as far as luxury housing is concerned. But in this entire bargain, and since your question was especially focusing on luxury housing, but I digress a little and tell you that affordable housing is suffering big times because no supply side intervention is coming. As I said, the developers who have been creating affordable housing have packed their bags and are doing only upper end housing. So the problem is today, and of course this is again a hot topic, when the GST benefits are coming down, especially GST benefits and income tax new brackets, etc., are giving lots of benefits to the lower end of society, and when that segment of society is coming forward to buy houses, they are not finding any. And that's a disaster. And that's where I'm worried that when the demand is shooting up so much, the price rise or inflation in that category will hurt the most, because obviously they don't have the ability to spend like the upper end of the society. But
Sure.
because there is just simple economics, lesser supply, the demand will shoot up and prices will go up. And that's a scary situation. I think I overstepped my question. I'm sorry, but
No,
then
no,
I
no,
just thought I'll
absolutely.
set the backdrop.
No, no, valid point there, Gulam. And let's also talk about a little bit about the macro tailwinds that we are seeing. GDP growth for FY26 has been revised upwards to 6.8, inflation easing below 3%. So, how critical sort of are these macro tailwinds for sustaining real estate demand?
Well, no price for guessing. Of course, it's going to be a huge benefit for real estate, because as I said, the upper end, which has been, and that's where, of course, while we're talking about the luxury housing doing such a fantastic job, but there
Mm,
will be some limit to how much will you
mm,
capitalize on just the upper end of the market. You will have to look at mid to low end.
sure.
And that's where, again, post COVID, there was a huge discussion that the wealth creation in the lower end of the market was completely eroded, and the worst impacted were the bottom of pyramid of the society. But the percolation of wealth has started happening for last 2 to 3 years. So there
Sure.
are people down there who also have money, and especially after the revision in income tax and GST brackets, etc. Today they have a decent amount in their pockets and they want to go for
Mm,
housing. So
sure.
going forward, while there were some concerns that the fatigue or the slowdown in the upper end will hit, if not in the next couple of quarters, maybe in a year or two. So
Sure.
at that time, the lower end has to come forward to support the overall real estate industry and housing. Well,
Mm,
let's also be clear about this. Almost 80% of the real estate industry is about housing. So
right.
when we're talking about such a deep-rooted business interest, we need to focus on longevity of this sector, and
Mm,
in that, the sub-markets are also important. So you may have a few players who are focusing on upper end, but not
sure.
all of them can focus. Somebody has to come down.
Mm,
Recently, we have come across one or two of these players who are talking about lower end, catering to lower end as well. Fresh
okay.
players. I'm happy that the trend is changing a little. But
Mm,
then times to come, going forward, overall, we are looking at a positive trend continuing for real estate, especially because residential will have a few more legs in affordable and low end housing also coming in. And as we spoke earlier, commercial spaces are very much in demand. Even during the
mm,
time when the residential was going through a rough patch, commercial continued to support. So going forward, we shall see the sector gunning on all the engines, full throttle
mm.
running. So industry, in my view, has a good time ahead.
Absolutely. And residential sales sort of rose marginally by 1% year on year in Q3 2025. But new launches have sort of continued to outpace sales for the 12th straight quarter, which you also highlighted in the conversation. Should this be seen as a concern, but you said that demand will eventually catch up as well. But over to you, sir.
Exactly. My point is, we've been kind of milking the same cow a lot. We need to look at spreading our eggs in different baskets,
Sure.
especially because there will be a limitation of the upper end of the market. And since everybody is focusing on the upper end, somewhere the
Mm,
realization is to dawn upon the stakeholders, the supply side stakeholders, and for them to then also focus or balance their portfolio into mid to lower end as well is the need
right.
of the hour. But going forward, while the current numbers, as you rightly said, are hinting at a plateauing of the overall
Mm,
inventory demand supply scenarios, etc. But going forward with the festive season coming in a couple of days just around the corner, as
yes.
well as the GST and income tax benefits that have been in a lot of those pockets out there, how do we
Mm,
capitalize on that? Has to be the strategy going forward, and I'm sure developers will quickly change or adapt to the new realities, and
mm,
the industry will continue. I don't really look at a kind of a slowdown or slide in the curve for at least next
mm.
couple of years.
Absolutely. Well, on that positive note, Mrs. Zia, thank you so much for sharing your valuable insights. Clearly, India's real estate sector stands at a exciting crossroads, you could say that, with strong fundamental, shifting preferences, and macro support, all pointing towards a new growth cycle. On that note, thank you so much for your time, Mrs. Zia.
My pleasure, Kshitij. Absolutely a pleasure talking to you. Take care.
Thank you.